Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the home of the best chat on the internet, not to mention the place where we come to go a bit beyond the review. Boy, it's like I've forgotten how to do this. We are in the new year. We apparently I forgot even how to get my own audio together the other night. Really sorry for that. But yeah, we're back finally and ready for another great show. Tonight we are going to be chatting about Spider-Man No Way From Home, or Spider-Man No Way Home. This little flick, this little shindig, this little show, it is now they're talking about it's going to be another $1 billion film, and it hasn't even been released in China. But before we get into the thick of it, we got a special guest for you tonight. Our good friend, a good friend of the show. But I think what I really need to do is, I think it's time to bring on my good friend, my co-host, the man with the most, Mr. Jim Chboyko. How you doing, my friend?
Good.
I don't know what he's looking for, but
forgotten something, but it'll come up, I'm sure, exactly when I need it. So,
that's usually the way those
good.
things
Happy
work.
New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year to you.
We got a
yeah. What were you saying there, Jim?
We have a whole. We just have a new year of movies ahead of us, and all sorts of cultural. I don't know, autopsies to do.
Shenanigans.
The Golden Globes are coming up. The Oscars are in a couple months.
Yeah.
So
Kind of
brand new year. We just got done with all the top 10 lists. Sorry, go ahead.
No, continue. Or I guess that's
I
it.
just got done.
All right, we're moving on. Why don't we move on? We've got another person sitting in the green room. Let's bring him on for his regular monthly What's on his radar? What's on DMG's radar? And here we have Brian, Dragon Movie Guy. Brian, welcome to Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies.
Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. How are you doing, man, in 2022 in Nevada?
I'm doing great. I had a little bit of a growth spurt at the end of December on my channel. Thankfully, it's not a huge growth spurt. It's just tiny little. But I'm pushing almost at close to 250 subs. So I'm at 247 right now. So
wow. Super cool, man.
I mean, it's not huge, but it's huge for me.
Yeah.
So had a little bit of growth. Obviously, everyone watches movies during Christmas holiday time of year. So I think it's more that than anything I'm doing right. But yeah, I mean, you always feel good when the energy that you're pouring into something is, headed in the right direction as opposed to the wrong direction. So, as the Seahawks fan whose team is in last place, I take my victories where I can get them. So,
yeah. When is the Super Bowl?
Next year.
Yeah. Next year. It's usually the first weekend in February since the last 20 years.
So. Gotcha. So the chances of making it are nil and zip.
Yeah, mathematically eliminated is the phrase that I haven't heard in a decade or so, but we are mathematically eliminated. So
okay, well, I'll leave I'll leave that to Jim to compare your experience as a fan of the Seattle Seahawks versus his experience as a fan of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
But hockey season is now here, so. There's always something.
There's always something, and I should mention that the very well documented on Twitter, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were name checked on The Simpsons on Sunday night. If anyone's still watching new episodes, so that made the rounds of Twitter. As a defensive Canadian, I can appreciate how it was light speed, but yeah, a lot of mentions of that the other day.
Very cool. All right, guys, what do we get into it? Brian, again, thank you very much for coming. This is the second time this week. First night, Sunday night, I had some technical difficulties, which I've now addressed. But we really do appreciate you coming again to give us half of your January must-watch movie list. So,
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk. It's every time we get new month, new year especially, but new month. It's always fun to look forward to what movies are going to be coming out this week, this month, this year, and so we're taking a look at the movies that are coming out in January. There's not a lot in January because there was so much in December. It's almost like you buy all those Christmas presents in December. And then January, you kind of got to tighten the belt a little bit financially to kind of recover from the excesses of December. Movies are a little bit like that now too, because all the awards contenders had to come out in December before the change of the new year. So there was only 9 movies when I made the video and launched it on the 1st.
Oh, cool.
There's now 8 movies because
one got pushed, eh?
Yeah, Morbius, the
Oh, yeah.
Sony Marvel starring Jared Leto, Michael Morbius, the guy who turns into a vampire. That now got pushed as of yesterday afternoon. It got pushed to April 1st, not as an April Fool's joke or an early April Fool's joke, but there's obviously with everything kind of surging and waxing and waning, they got a little nervous, so they pushed it to April. So there are now 8 movies coming out in the month of January. I'm sticking with my numbers because otherwise I'm going to get all screwed up as to which ones there are. But we're doing our first 5, which are number 9, 8, 7, and 6, and 5.
All righty. Well, then let's get the show on the road.
Yes.
Number 9. Let me get it up on the screen there.
Number nine is The King's Daughter. The King's Daughter is Kaya Scodelario, who was just in the Resident Evil movie that came out last month. She plays the illegitimate daughter of King Louis XIV, who's played by Pierce Brosnan. Somehow she ends up going to live with the king, with her dad for some reason, and it's
Is it a period piece?
Yeah, it's a period piece. King Louis XIV was king of France from early 18th century, I believe, if I looked at my notes right. And so she's walking around the palace. It's all spoken in English, at least in the trailer. And then she discovers a mermaid. Played
As
by Bing
one
Bing
does.
Fan. Yeah, exactly. Because mermaids just go everywhere, and obviously a historical piece, historically accurate piece too. But it looks like it's a film that deals with the relationships between father and daughter, and for some reason the idea of James Bond killing a mermaid to gain eternal life. So like I said, we only have 9 movies total coming out this month, so it's impossible to do a top 10. So look, the special effects look pretty decent. It looks like a fun film, even though it sounds kind of dark when I describe it. But overall, you have Julie Andrews doing narration for the film. William Hurt's in the fan. Bing Bing Fan plays the mermaid, and never hurts to have a James Bond in the cast as well. So, The King's Daughter, not to be confused with one of my selections last month, The King's Man, comes out. That is my number 9 pick. Comes out January 21st in theaters.
There's nothing you've said in there. I'm not saying that Pierce Brosnan would hurt a film, but there's a point you cannot push up anything uphill with a rope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there all kinds of Sisyphusian images come to mind. For sure.
All right. So number 8. What's your number 8, man?
Number 8. I've got a couple of animated films in here, and number 8 is it's the 6th film in a franchise. It is the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild, not the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Naked, which I keep wanting to say instead of Buck Wild. Sort of a weird name, but the idea is that it's the 6th film in the Ice Age franchise. they somehow fall into a Lost World, Jurassic Park type thing, and they discover a character, a mammal who wants to be a superhero, but he doesn't want to be a superhero. But if you call me a superhero, I'll be okay with you calling me a superhero. So I don't know whether this is going to be a superhero flick, a superhero Ice Age flick, or just no, it's not a superhero. It is a superhero type flick. Ray Romano is not in this film doing the voice of the not the mastodon, the big elephant Ice Age. Anyway, he is not in there. There's another guy doing it, but we do have Utkarsh Ambedkar and Simon Pegg coming back to reprise their roles in this film. It looks, if you look at the trailers, the animation quality looks like it's definitely a step down, which is never good when you're talking animation. And every couple of years animations get better, but this is one that's going straight to Disney Plus. So I'm sure they have the streaming money as opposed to the feature film money. So overall, no Ray Romano, no theatrical release. But these things aren't made for, they're made to have more fun than anything else. So this is the lower of the two animated films on my list, but it comes in at number 8.
All right,
and it comes to Disney Plus on January 28th.
Because all the best films are saved for January. All right,
yeah.
Number 7.
Number 7, getting raising the bar a little bit here. We have we just had the 6th film in the Ice Age. This is the 4th film in the Hotel Transylvania series, but this is also a film that does not have Adam Sandler. So if you follow the Police Academy rules, if Police Academy, if it was so bad that the actors were dropping out at a certain point, that's when to stop watching. This
Michael Winslow is out of there.
Sorry?
Michael Winslow, I'm out of here. That's the sound effects guy.
Yeah. I was thinking I'm brain farting, but the guy who played Carrie Mahoney, the main character, Steve Guttenberg. When Steve Guttenberg stopped being in the Police Academy movies, that's when that, just stop watching entirely and, straight to DVD, straight to streaming kind of thing. Adam Sandler, not the voice of Dracula like he was in the first 3 films.
Oh, really?
But this is one that still has Andy Samberg. It still has Selena Gomez. And they're kind of going for the fish out of water thing with the storyline on this one. They have, the idea is that, they're at it's called Hotel Transylvania.
Like everyone.
Yeah. So it's Hotel Transylvania Transformania. And the idea is that Van Helsing creates a big, a ray gun kind of thing, shoot people. And it's supposed to change humans into monsters and monsters back into humans. Ooh. And somehow it works, turning people
a twist.
Yes.
It's a twist.
And fish out of water. And somehow by accident, Dracula or Drac gets turned from the vampire into a human. And he just ends up being a middle-aged dude who's, not a vampire anymore. And he wants to get it back to being him as a vampire and fully being Dracula. So they go on a journey, go on a quest, similar to how we saw the Addams Family movie thing, where fish out of water, put him out in the wilderness, in the ether. And if you ever wanted to see Dracula reacting to sunlight, check out the trailer for Hotel Transylvania Transformania.
Transformania.
It comes to Amazon Prime Video on January 14th.
All right. And so that was number 7.
Number 7.
We're on number 6, which is
number 6. I always kind of cringe because I love football and I love movies, but Hollywood always refuses to just make a football movie. It always has to be about something bigger, something different, something, they always have to do, it's about sports, but it's about something more. So this is a film that's about New Orleans Saints head coach Sean Payton.
That man among men.
Yes.
That human prince.
Yes. And so Kevin James plays Sean Payton. And Sean Payton in real life was and is the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. They won a Super Bowl 10, 15 years ago. But what happened was there was a controversy in the NFL where Saints players and coaches were betting each other that they could injure opposing players. So
I believe they were bounties.
Yes, they were in fact bounties. So it was called Bountygate. It was a big thing, and the NFL came down, issued whatever reports. And one of the things that happened in there was that Sean Payton was not forced to be fired, but he was suspended for an entire season. So for some reason, the time period we're focusing on this is him finding out he's suspended. And well, I can't be a football coach anymore, so I'm going to go spend time with my son. Which, it's always a little strange thing about priorities in the NFL. But so that's sort of the premise for this film. It's called Home Team, and it's that time when Sean Payton is trying to hang out with his son, and they're doing a little Bad News Bears type film where the film isn't very, or the team is not very good. Sean Payton, NFL head coach, Super Bowl winning head coach, volunteers to be a coach on the team to help make a bond with his son and get the team better. But yeah, it looks like the Bad News Bears. Kevin James as Sean Payton. I don't see it, but it's a comedy. It looks like it might be decent if you're looking for a football film for the end of year, Super Bowl time of year. But yeah, so it comes to Netflix on January 28th, so right before the Super Bowl.
All righty, so that was number 6. I guess we're on our last one for the list tonight, and
yes.
We have got oh my goodness, is that just a sec here? Okay, number 5 on your list.
Number five is the 5th film, just in time for the 25th anniversary of when the original came out. This is a horror film. I'm not usually into horror films, but I do love this whole series. The first one, though, was the best. This one looks like it's trying to connect with the first one. This is it is the 5th film, but it's still only called Scream. The original 3 actors that are surviving from the cast come back, and Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette, they're all back, but they're sort of handing the baton off to the new generation. And in this film, the new generation is represented by In the Heights' Melissa Barrera. She plays Sam, and Ghostface is back to try and take her out and take out all of her friends too. So the originals come back. They pick up their knives and guns and stab. And of course, Ghostface coming back to try and stabby, whatever. So it looks pretty good. Melissa Barrera was really, really good in The Heights. I know that's a musical. This is a horror film. But overall, it's kind of cool to see one generation in Neve Campbell hanging out with Melissa Barrera in the next generation, trying to overcome Ghostface. So, and that is coming. It hits theaters January 14th.
All righty. January 14th, a big January.
Yeah, when 3 out of the 5 are highlighting are coming to streaming.
Having a hard time keeping a straight face there.
Well, if we looked at the top 5, it'd be the better films. But yeah, it's January. It's that post holidays, pre Oscars. Not a lot new because no one wants to nominate movies from last January for this year's Oscars. So it's post holiday. Yeah,
it is what it is.
Post holidays. So much so that my number 1 movie for the month got kicked back 3 months. So it's January.
Listen, Brian, again, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate you, as always, coming to the show, sharing these lists with you, putting stuff on our radar, even if it's, how do you put it, Jim? What do you and your wife do every now and then? A midwinter what watch?
Oh, hate watch.
So a couple of these might end up on that list, but still fun
Yeah, I
for
mean,
the whole family. Nobody's getting hurt.
yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, none of these films look awful. If they looked awful to me, I wouldn't include them on the list. But they all just sort of look, yeah, the midwinter watch. You're right.
The midwinter watch. Very politically correct of you, sir. All right, my friend, thank you very much. I do want to, first of all, ask everyone right now just quickly to, maybe a little thumbs up while you're watching. Of course, don't forget to subscribe, and not just to our channel, but if you haven't already, go over to Dragon Movie Guy. His links to his channel are in the description, and to his full list, the top 4, the let's say the wheat from the chaff, is actually out and on his channel right now. So go click on that, and while you're there, subscribe. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, and this is for both of us, ringy ding that bell.
Oh.
Here we go. Sound effects and
go.
everything. All right, Brian, thank you very much. We will, you and I will follow up with each other perhaps later this week on a couple of matters. But we're going to see you next week anyway, because you're going to be our Golden Globes correspondent, because it's not being broadcast.
Hitting refresh on
He's within
Google
4
Chrome a
hours
lot.
of the place.
Anyway, so we're going to see you next week anyway, or on Sunday anyway. But still, thank you very much for coming. Thanks for your patience as we ran into the difficulties the other night. And what else can I say?
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And I am working on a new video to come out early next week. I'm looking at I'm doing a ranking of the 2022 superhero films coming out. So that's the next video I'm working on. So.
Super cool, man. And I want to say to everyone, check out Brian. He's got a great series where he takes a movie and he looks at all the cast and says, okay, where was this person's break? What was this person's first performance? One that I don't know what it is, because I saw her in another poster, Carrie Coon. I do not know why. I can never recognize her from film to film. Is that an amazing compliment
I
on her
can't
ability? Okay,
Well,
it's not just
the best thing, or the most famous thing she's done. She's not physically in it. She was the voice of Proxima Midnight in Avengers Endgame and Infinity War.
No way.
And that was for those who don't know, Thanos is the big bad guy, and he has basically like 4 horsemen that are sort of like his lieutenants. And she is the only female of those lieutenants. She's got like horns on her face, and
she's the big giant.
And in the Battle of Wakanda, they basically have Carrie Coon's character, her voice of a character, taking on like all the women characters in that film. So if you've seen Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame, that is where you've probably heard her voice before.
Well, there we go.
I did not know that.
Thanks for that, man. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to give you the bum's rush, show you the door while we get on with talking about the final collab between Sony and the MCU, talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. All right, man. Ciao for now. We'll talk later this week. And of course, we'll see you next weekend. What else is there to say? Bye-bye. Oh, good grief.
See you later. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. All right. Bear with me while I... of course, there'll be an adjustment as I figure certain things out. But you know what? We're not going to worry about that right now. You know what, Jim, I love the new system we have, but it does have some weaknesses. Like, you can see the one, you can see what's happened right now. If I adjust, oh, good grief. Bear with me, everyone. I do appreciate, again, I appreciate your amazing patience as I slowly but surely figure out how this thing works. Well, it's not even figuring it out how it works. I would argue this is a weakness. Well, there's a weakness to OBS, but Jim, I'm just too cheap. Robbie loves saving the money.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Let's just get started. I'm going to take a look. Bear with me here, folks. I'm just going to grab my little cheat sheet on this movie, and then we'll go into the all the other deets, man. All right. So we've got, yes, Spider-Man No Way Home. It is, for the foreseeable future, the last collaboration between Sony, who owns the rights to Spider-Man, the film rights, and Disney/Marvel cinematic universe. This will be their last one for the foreseeable future. From IMDb, here's the log line. With Spider-Man's identity now revealed, Peter asks Doctor Strange for help. But when Doctor Strange's spell goes wrong, dangerous foes from other worlds start to appear, forcing Peter to learn yet again what it truly means to be Spider-Man. It's directed by Jon Watts. It was written by the writing team of Chris McKenna and Erik Sommers. It stars Tom Holland, Jacob Batalon, and Zendaya. And then it also stars, like, just a long list of monster names: Benedict Cumberbatch, Jon Favreau, Jamie Foxx, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Benedict Wong. The list continues. Marissa Tomei, Andrew Garfield, and, of course, Tobey Maguire. You know what? There might be some implied spoilers in there, but you know what? We'll get to those in a second. So we've got that. Now, as far as the social nutrition checklist goes, let's get this started. Could it qualify for a reframe stamp? Well, I suppose within the realm of possibility, but that's a big fat no. It would not qualify based on its composition. All right. Is it union made? Well, as a matter of fact, yes, it is. It is a union made picture. So you got that. You got that going for it. What about the Bechdel test? Would it pass the Bechdel test? You know what? I am going to argue that it didn't. There were opportunities, but no, it didn't. And then certainly last but not least, was this a class-conscious film? And I am going to say, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jim, and say, no, it was not. And that gives it a score of 25%. But I would love to hear what you thought, Jim, as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think back, because it's been a couple weeks since we actually saw it, and we did want to talk about it more.
Speaking of which, folks, I will have a link. I'll pin it in a comment. I will have a link to our parking lot reaction. A new tradition here on Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, where Jim and I sit in a Tim Hortons parking lot like truly a couple of stereotypical Canadians, complaining about Tim Hortons and talking about the movie we just saw. All right. Sorry, exactly. Jim. Continue.
With snow machinery driving by us in the background, and Paladin security cars and all kinds of stuff. And the denizens of downtown Winnipeg at 1 a.m. on a -30-degree night. It's kind of atmospheric anyway. But Yeah, I just trying to think back. I don't think I have anything much to counter what you said there. And I'm, thinking back, I think we saw it about 2.5 weeks now, ago now. So I would say that sounds pretty right. Class consciousness. I mean, they're sort of. It's more. Yeah, no, I don't think there is much of that there. No, I think that's probably pretty on the mark there.
All right. Okay. Well, why don't we, even though we do have our reaction, let's, you know what? Let's give the folks a quick review. Uh, with your permission, Jim, I'll start.
No, absolutely.
I would say, yeah, I, you know what? I liked this movie. I enjoyed this movie, even though I may have talked some shit about it as it was given the premise, the setup. But the more I think about it, the more it grows on me, the more respect I have for this film. Yeah, and it has everything you need. The emotional heft, like, I mean, I felt as Peter felt, as it dawns on him what his choices are costing him. It feels that it also, without a doubt, the standard, with great power comes great responsibility. It delivers this in a way that no other Spider-Man film has done. The performances, I don't think there was a weak performance. It had, you know what, and we'll get deeper into it later. I think it also has a thematic heft that no other MCU movie has shown us yet. Some great action sequences. No Shang-Chi bus fight. I agree with you, Jim, that what was your take on Twitter? That bus fight should have its own movie.
Yeah, exactly. Just off. Just call it bus fight.
That's what it's called.
Yeah,
bus fight.
Basic ingredients.
Bus fight. All right,
fight. Yeah,
Jim.
Megan, 3 hours long.
Why don't you give us your quick review?
So my turn for the quick.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean,
what hasn't already been said in previous videos?
Thank God that it's not another. Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that there was one thing I stumbled on that I did want to mention in the parking lot video, but apparently my brain had frozen by that point. Or although I don't think that was our cold snap yet to then. But I think what it is that there's probably, unless you're counting maybe some James Bond and maybe the new Star Trek movies with their sort of how they've sort of changed things around, I don't think there's another movie like this, and I don't think there's another movie that will be like this. And these are the ingredients here. You've got previous versions, and I didn't count the Avengers movies, but there's 3 Tobey Maguire movies. There's 2 Garfield ones.
2 Andrew Garfield ones. Yep.
There's 3 Tom Holland ones. And so with this movie, you're able to bring them all together under a particular purpose, which is kind of smart, like the way that they sort of were able to bring that all together. And they're also, all the other vested interests, business interests involved too. They obviously came together for this. And then you add to that the general education of the audience. Probably most of the people, not all, I would suggest, but probably most people who are going to see this in the theater have seen all the other Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland ones.
So if they haven't, they're going to be aware of it. Like I know what's going. I knew what was going on in Game of Thrones, and I watched all of 2 episodes. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people go to movies just because they're a new movie on Friday. Once again, I refer to my experiences at the 2 Towers, where the people beside us, when the elves came to rescue everyone at Helm's Deep, said, "I think they're Egyptian." So that's, I don't think you're going to encounter too much of that with this one. And then you know, you have 8 movies, let's say, over 20 years, 3 different stars, the visions of several directors, and you're able to bring them all together under this movie. So I think that's a pretty unique situation, and that they could uh, do it, that they could uh, bring it out and do it in an entertaining and colorful way, I think is a, a good sign, a testament to their skill and dedication. And then I was thinking too, amongst the other sequels that we've seen The Matrix Resurrections lately. We've seen Spider-Man No Way Home, obviously, and I'm thinking, if this was your first movie watching any of these series, which one of them would drag you more into it? Like, if you were watching Spider-Man No Way Home and it was your first Spider-Man movie, would you be more inclined to watch the rest of them as opposed to The Matrix? If you watch The Matrix Resurrections, you could say,
Oh,
got to check out the rest of these
Well, I
Matrix.
mean, almost like not a good comparison. One being so weak,
Yeah, and
Yeah,
but
like
I mean, it's that sort of. It's just something I was thinking about. It's almost like when you, I mean, I go on with this, but it's just that the nature of the sequel, I think. Yeah, obviously the Matrix is weak, but this one felt fresh. I mean, comparing the two experiences, you're basically seeing the third movie of the Tom Holland series, the fourth movie of the other ones, and this one still felt fresh. But anything else? Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm getting really kind of tired of that kind of, that struggle with invisible forces. He does that stuff really well, like the whole hand stuff.
okay, you know what? I'm gonna put a stop.
Alternate.
Okay, wait, I gotta hold you there.
Sure.
We're way beyond a quick review.
Sure. Okay.
So you liked it or not?
Oh, I did like it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I was glad that they took it away from the class trip. There's maybe too many villains, but they have villains go in different directions. Yeah, the rest of it I can save for later. But yeah, it still felt pretty fresh. It was pretty entertaining, pretty enjoyable.
Okay. All right. So let's first of all, want to welcome. We got a new person in the chat, an MJ. Of course, we're talking about Spider-Man, so I'm thinking about Mary Jane. Anyway, welcome. MJ starts immediately with the coming in hot, saying, "So, what things y'all didn't like in NWH?" And my response has been, "Not much at all, actually." All right. I think that, though, is our cue, Jim, to move forward. And yeah, I think, bear with me. The spoiler zone.
Oh, there we go.
Yikes. Bumping the mic and everything. It's out of control. All right. Craft.
Live TV.
So I'll throw back to you, Jim. Talk about praise or complain about Mr. Cumberbatch and the dealing with magic with his hands.
Sure. Well, just there's so many movies where people are fighting. They're fighting with the invisible forces, and they're doing this and pulling that, and it gets, if you're not sort of fully vested in it, if you're not like 110% there, it doesn't really come across. I could watch him do that stuff all day. I don't know what it is. If I was a kid, I'd probably be doing impressions of him at school and then getting beaten up by the rest of the children. But anyway, I think he makes a great Doctor Strange as a comic. Thor, and I think Doctor Strange were all these semi-serious, or not semi, these very serious comics, as back in the day, and they sort of made them into lighter, more interesting characters. But I like Benedict. I think he's a good choice, and he's spoken on interviews about the joy of playing Doctor Strange, that he really gets into it. He says, "What's not to love?" he's a well respected character, and he seems to really get off on it. And I think it shows there. And he makes a nice foil to um, Peter Parker, like who's again, you can say he's maybe looking for sort of a surrogate father now that Tony's passed. But yeah, so I dug that. And we're in the spoiler zone now. I thought Garfield was really great. I've not always loved Andrew Garfield, but I thought he especially was really good. Tobey Maguire was good as well. It was nice to have them all. I know there's some arguments about fan service and how they were introduced, and certain money shots were fumbled, but I like them as sure. No. So I like them, and the whole. I mean, Marissa Tomei makes a great Aunt May. Yeah, I thought it was and I'm glad they were in a different situation, that story though. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think? You said there wasn't any weak member in
as
the
far
cast.
as yeah, I don't think there was. I don't think there was one weak performance. I do. Yeah, and I mean it's as good as any other MCU movie. Shiny, sparkly. Uh, I was interested in some of the some of the iconography in that, and some of the choices they made, but that's a bit of an overlap. But yeah, the soundtrack was great, as one would expect. There's certain things at this level you would notice more problems than you would. You'd notice more problems than you would notice a greatness in a way. And especially the MCU has always maintained kind of a high standard, and so is Sony. They maintain a certain high standard unless they're rushing. Oh, oh my God, we got to get this in the theaters next week instead of the 3 months from now when we originally planned. Boy, those effects are not as polished as we'd like. But seriously, there's a certain standard. The talent they hire is of that standard. Really, the MCU's strength has always been story. They hire the right people. It's really about story that they, kind of live or die. That's the hill they live and die on. Characterization and story. So as far as the craft goes, what do you say? Yeah, it was when it was supposed to look amazing, it looked amazing. Are these all talented people who are compelling to watch? Yes, they are. You look at that cast list and you're like, what's not to like? The only reason you wouldn't is because you've decided, and it's the viewer's preference, but there may be, I just don't like X or Y, but yeah, no, I was thoroughly impressed. And at the same time, kind of maybe thoroughly impressed is too strong. More like, this met my high expectations of an MCU film as far as the craft goes. Yeah. What else? What are you gonna say? Nobody phoned it in.
No.
Nope.
And I have to say, it was nice seeing Otto Octavius and Norman Osborn in there again. I think it sort of is a testament to how strong their characters were in the Raimi movies.
Yeah.
And they were back there, just I don't want to say they weren't hamming it up, I don't think, but their presence was appreciated. Both of them are very sort of a muscular presence in a way.
And they look like they're having a good time
like
with
they
it.
feel deadly. Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, so they all have different things to do as well. I don't think they gave enough time to all of them, but that's a whole other thing. But especially, Willem Dafoe, and my brain is freezing.
Alfred Molina.
Molina, absolutely, yeah. So yeah, it was good to see them as well.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move quickly then into story. Yeah, Jim, I mentioned this like when we did the parking lot reaction. And at the time I felt that the premise was, it's like, really, are we kicking off this movie about a teenager who just wants to go to school with his friends? And then we have what, how did you put it in the parking lot reaction? It was a funny bit, a funny riff on, wow, if there was ever time for an adult to have a conversation with a kid about what do you actually want here, this was it.
Yeah.
But they got to make the movie
Yeah.
go. I am now. I'm taking half of that away. I actually now think, and we'll get into it more later, but I do. I think this is exactly the beginning of this. This beginning makes total sense. This story is about this young man trying to have some control in his life, which is what all the stories have been about. You know, having some control, wanting to be a kid. So of course it would start with this, him wanting to hang out with his friends, go to the same school, and to be able to ditch all the crap of yeah, so I think it totally makes sense. Even Doctor Strange yaing it totally makes sense now. And so as far as this story goes, now here is where I'm thoroughly impressed. I think the writers and the director, the producers, the filmmaking team really did consciously think, how are we? And you had mentioned it earlier, Jim. It's almost like they looked at the Star Trek kind of reboot and went, well, we can do that, but better. You know, we don't have to play with time. We can play with the spell a little, but it's going to have real consequences. But also, it's this whole movie is their opportunity to, you know, steer the character. You know, I'm sure a lot of comic book fans were like, kind of, oh, this is more the Peter Parker of not just previous films, but the Peter Parker of the comics. Yeah, you know what, I haven't had the chance yet, Jim, and I wanted to before we did the show, but I'm looking forward to watching this movie again. I think it's got it's got so much going on. This could be this is starting to look like topping my MCU list, that ever changing, ever evolving ranking, which is why I really should never do rankings. You know, anyway, yeah, what?
It's a trap.
Well, and now to you, Admiral Akbar. What did you think of the story? It's like it's almost like I have so little to say. I'm now recognizing its genius, which I'll elaborate on further in the meaning, which is where I think this thing really hits.
I've been thinking about it a little more since we actually saw it before Christmas there. And yeah, I mean, the sort of the weird, you know, you set this chain of events up. Basically, it's Doctor Strange and Peter Parker, you know, sort of doing the, you know, Lucille Ball on the candy conveyor belt, almost like having sort of a wacky misunderstanding and trying to correct everything frantically. And so that's sort of done with a little bit of a, you know, just like a wacky air, and oh no, we forgot to include this and that and this and that.
Well, and it's almost like a bit of a misdirection too, like on the heft.
It is, because it leads to the death of Aunt May, right? So I mean, it's really what's the, like, a cognitive dissonance thing, if I'm using the word correctly in this situation. It's sort of hard to reconcile, but they managed to deal with the tones of everything. I mean, back on the parking lot film, I did mention that the old Doctor, who was around the era of David Tennant, they had that swashbuckling energy, but there was always a consequence to it. You know, they get through several adventures, and there'd be one character that says, you know, everything that meets the Doctor dies, and then you know, it'd be like a Debbie Downer moment.
Here's a
And
cue.
so, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, now we're gonna get dark. You know, it's ratings week. It's gonna get dark.
The other characters are, which one of
Ooh.
us?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to go. Why am I wearing a red shirt?
So I mean, there's a little bit of that in there, like the weird kind of tones. Another thing I was thinking about, and I don't think we talked about it since, is that correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be absolutely wrong here, is that if I've got all my facts straight and the chronology straight, they don't actually even, do they mention Tony when Strange and Parker are together? Do they even say, is there any, oh, he was a great guy or anything like that? Like, it's sort of weird to not mention him. I was thinking that you could have thrown him a bone of some sort. I mean, they're as happy.
I'm going to get into it because he's not mentioned as a man other than a couple references to gear. And when he's being
because there was the three of them, if you remember that. If you remember, it was the three of them up in space, wasn't it? It was Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange that were battling the guy in the spaceship. Anyway, so that was one of the things that I thought was,
Tony actually made him officially an Avenger.
Yeah. So there's that. But in terms of the story, I'm just glad they got away from the class field trip for template, which was I think really too much. You know, for two movies back to back, it was too much there. And the interesting thing is that, you know, they did two similar movies, then they did this one, and then they're like, okay, now we're gonna start from the beginning. So, which is not a bad thing, you know.
Not a bad thing. He'll be in school. Yeah. He will, you know, an opportunity to get to know Zendaya / is she an MJ? Or is she a Gwen?
Again?
She's an MJ, right? Zendaya?
Oh, yeah. They talked about it in the movie, but yeah. I mean, with Thor, they kind of, whereas Thor's stripping everything was gradual, including his eye, his hair, his hammer, his, you know, his kingdom, his planet, you know, they break him down. They've done a similar thing with Peter Parker here. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, they have to know where they're going, I would imagine. But that's kind of a way to refresh the story too. So
well, and to
that's
get
not a bad thing, and it challenges the writers.
Oh, well, it gets them out of the MCU. All of a sudden, you can have, and Zendaya is an MJ. She's not a Gwen, which I think in the previous one. Or in the first one with Tom Holland, the woman, there was a Gwen Stacy, I think was the first love interest, the son of the bad guy, I think. I am actually going to check this out right now. Let me,
our viewer MJ will have a few words if we don't get this right. So.
Oh, no, well, no. Where the heck is, oh, for crying out loud. No. You know, Liz. Ugh. Well, there we go. Nothing interesting about that.
DMG says Michelle Jones, MJ. So.
Yeah. But Liz was his romantic interest in the first movie in Homecoming.
Okay.
The popular kid. The party he went to. Et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What did you think of, like, again, what a great story moment. And it also goes to theme and everything. But when she dies, after being the one who kind of, she dies sticking to her like almost like a change of heart in that I'm talking about Aunt May. When she dies, again, quoting the Uncle Ben line, all I can think of is like, what a killer way to do this. This is a character, unlike Uncle Ben in the other movies, which you get it. He's a kindly old man, and you can feel for Peter when he dies, but you don't go. You're just not feeling a loss in the same way as Aunt May, who you've seen like for 3+ movies. That, like, I mean, when she died, and again, right to the end, sticking to her, her idea of what power and responsibility is, which is fundamentally different than previous takes, and definitely different from the way the MCU views it. That she is, and so I think it's just it's everything. You've got in her death, you have the philosophical stakes, the thematic stakes, and the story stakes, the emotional stake. Everything is there, and I'm just like, this might be one of the best deaths in the MCU, wrapped around a character who's going out. It's like leaving the top that one, because like in a way, Tony, it's like, it's a logical end to his arc. Did anyone else die in the MCU? No, we did have Black Widow, which just seemed like screwing Black Widow. And what's her name? Also a single name, if memory serves. Plays Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy. Gamora.
Yes.
Selena. Not Selena.
Yeah. Zoe Saldana.
Oh, thank you. So not a single.
I think you were just compacting them. Yeah.
Anyway, like that didn't have any heft in part, because I always expected her, she's coming back. She didn't come back in the way I thought, but you're kind of you're robbed of that moment. What did you think though of and it was kind of a subplot, almost like a comic relief plot, is Happy like a stalker, crying, and just, it's like, buddy, she's done. Your relationship is over. Time to move on. Yeah. Time to go back to your multi-million-dollar New York loft. Lick your wounds. Get back on Plenty of Fish.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. What did you think of that? Like, I mean, and that was a 2-movie arc.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, not much of an arc, like almost like a gag, a weird gag.
Yeah. I didn't really have. Yeah. I mean, I paid attention to it, but not in the way that I paid attention to the A plot, rather. I mean, I guess it was trying to give it a destination of some sort. Yeah, and I what were the reasons that she wanted out? Was there a particular? There wasn't a particular event.
I think it was kind of lame. She kept on referring to it. Like, I mean, I didn't. You know what? It was a fling. That was her. Well, it was a fling, and it's done. And they did that with the kids. The Babylon plays Peter's buddy. His name I can't remember. And the young woman, the little blonde girl, teenagers, young adults now. But she plays.
She's an Australian actress.
Yeah, but she always plays the student council on the really well produced high school television show, high school news show. She plays that character.
Oh yes,
they just had a fling, and it was just a thing when they from Far From Home. So it's almost like a riff on that, but that Happy couldn't take. The only thing I can think of is
Yeah.
maybe they had to stick with it to what's the word I'm looking for, Jim? They were sticking with that to give to give to give a reason for Happy to still be around. It's all I can think of, you know. But I don't think it did the Aunt May character. Like, I don't think it did her any service.
No.
And
no.
I don't think it did. It didn't do her any service, and it didn't do what's his name, Happy, any favors. Like, I mean, yeah, they both look a little bad. You know, she's laughing it off, which is like kind of okay. But at the same time, I mean, I can think any woman seeing his behavior, they'd be like, okay, do you need to call the cops? Should we get a restraining order? You know, and she's laughing it off and he's behaving like, well, like anybody, if you saw a friend doing that, you'd be like, get your head out of your ass. You know, you know, like you would.
I mean,
if your son was saying, "What do I do?" I suspect most of your advice would be, "Okay, you need to move on. If she doesn't want you, that's the hint." When she said broke it up,
yeah, you know,
and it's just a fling.
There was a movie called, I think it was Modern Romance. Was it an Albert Brooks movie all these years ago? I remember watching it on television. And as a teenager, being shocked, because there's a lot of that stalkery stuff, and as a teenager, not in in the 80s, not a particularly woke time, but he was dropping teddy bears off at her house at midnight and all this other stuff that made me kind of uncomfortable as a guy who hadn't even started dating yet. So, you know, I think Hollywood has a different treatment of this that may not have caught up quite, you know, whereas we'd be embarrassed by that sort of behavior. I've seen it, you know, you've seen it, probably a lot of us have seen it. It's like, buddy, don't do that. And then it you know, in Modern Love, it actually works for Albert Brooks. I was like, I didn't see that coming, you know, because it seemed like a weird stalkery thing to do. But yeah, you know, I guess what did they need Happy for in this? I mean, they needed some continuation. They needed a connection to the Stark Foundation. They needed a place to use as a refuge, so they used his apartment, right?
Which I thought would have been, I mean, even thinking about it now, Jim, wouldn't it have been better? Okay, he takes a hint. Last movie, I say, okay. And then all of a sudden, there she is knocking on the door, kind of, yeah, I need your help. And I'm like, really? Why? Oh, wait. Oh, you mean you really need my help? Okay, come in. You know, I mean, that would have been cooler and a little more real. DMG says, I'm just looking at the chat here. DMG went, I liked Happy and Aunt May together. The whole opposites track. There's an honest vulnerability that we see with those two characters when they're together. It felt like there's moments there there's like, oh, that's like a real relationship, and the discomfort around the young adult child. DMG continues to go on. The weird thing with Happy was, why was Happy doing corporate espionage with Tony's tech? Why would he not be allowed access as the former security head? That's the only real logical. Yeah, I didn't. It sounded, I got the impression at the early in the film when they were interrogating the kids, as one does, treating them all like criminals. Well, even there was the plot hole for me. If there was a plot hole, it was, how is he getting off on that? It seemed there'd be more, not just a few phone calls. It's like there'd be more to it. But it sounded like as soon as Tony died, the government swooped in, confiscated a bunch of stuff. That's the impression I got, which is probably why he's got some of his junk, especially the big super maker.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. It's sort of, and I guess in a way that it's Peter's access to anything Stark Industries that he wouldn't normally. It's almost a pragmatic sort of bridge to Stark Industries.
I just think the relationship could have been handled better And you
Yeah.
still could have had him, that access to gizmos that they want to play with,
Mhm.
which is totally reasonable. It is an MCU movie, you know. I get
Yeah.
it. That makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
was there any other eye pokers? Like I said, the one, the government guy, the swooping in, the bringing in of this Daredevil, right? The blind lawyer
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
with the nunchucks. I think he has nunchucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that seemed to be a little, like that there. I thought that seemed to be a bit of cameo bait,
Mm.
fan service, a bit of a fan service scene. It's like how many people? Where's January Jones when you need her? How many
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
could we jam in here? But you know,
Yeah. I guess. Hmm. I was just about to mention something that happened in the Hawkeye series, so that would not be appropriate for this discussion of this movie. But
we're
yeah,
not
I
spoiler zones for all MCU stuff.
no, no. But or a whole character that didn't appear in Spider-Man at all. Yeah, I at the time, if there was something at the time, it hasn't lasted. Um, I'm sort of curious as to how it'll go on from here, which is what they want. They want you to be, invested in the story and see, be wanting to see where it goes on from here. I have no idea
Yeah.
when the next one is slated to come out, but yeah, they've
I'll
got
say
some work to do.
I'm excited because there's a lot of story opportunities now. You get it's like I'm thinking the Tobey Maguire version. Although this could be a really nice mix between Tobey Maguire and Alex Garfield, like both Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man. But right at that, hey, you're out of high school, done all the other stuff. How is he going to be in it? How is he going to attend some of the basics and a little
Mhm.
more your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, fighting crime that people actually experience, right? One of the things I've always liked about Spider-Man versus a lot of other superheroes is it's a little more grassroots, a little more,
Mhm.
that person robbed that thing that I go to. You see what he's fighting. It's the bodega, like, oh my goodness, this actually hurt our neighborhood, or, which I kind of enjoy, which is why I can't say I struggled, but I was like kind of, if there is a hint of consciousness, because I think Peter Parker is a working class guy. That doesn't mean this has got
Yeah.
consciousness, but he is a working class guy. He's got to
Yeah.
make rent and fight crime.
Well, and MJ's working in the coffee shop, and they're not club kids, right?
Yeah,
So there's
no.
I mean there's some ingredients there, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of things to juggle, and also Tom Holland's, like the rest of us, he ages, although he's
Yeah.
probably going to be perpetually boyish until he's 60. So I think they cast him well that way. I can't see him sort of, becoming, sort of.
He's got an earnestness
uh,
about him.
Yeah, I don't see him going pear-shaped or losing all his hair or anything else too. So I think he'll physically fit the part for a while yet. But I the other thing too is I think there was a little bit of I got the sense, and I got the same sense of a little bit of fatigue from specifically from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in this one, in this particular movie, as being a middle-aged Spider-Man. I got the same sense of it from Nick, who plays Nick Miller on New Girl, Jake Johnson, in the animated movie last year. That sort of, hey kid, you'll figure your way out of this. That sort of like been there, done that quality. And it's sort of interesting to see how you go from a, gee, Mr. Stark, to a, oh yeah, another liquor store robbery kind of thing. Where there seems to be a little bit of a projection, maybe a little bit of a this guy needs a rest. That's sort of a little bit of the sense that I got from that this is a job and a position that maybe tires you out a little bit. So, just a little hint of it, because I think the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man seemed a little bit more tired than the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, who is a few years, I guess, if you're going to look at the ages of these guys, maybe a few years younger. So that's just one of the little sort of impressions it left me with.
What do you like? I'm thinking about. Oh, you know what? I've lost my train of thought there. Never mind, Jim. Sorry, man. I'm like, what? But yeah, damn it, it's gone. Why don't we? You know what? I think though that is the perfect time to move from story into meaning. And again, I want to say, from the top, this has thematic subtleties that, really kind of grow on me. But before I before I heap praise upon this film, I want to hear from you, Jim. What do you think? What did you think about the themes this film discussed and how it discussed them?
Well, just what you're saying.
Because I've got
there's
several
different approaches
speeches.
to. I think. Sure.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no. I think
approaches.
Just in talking about this again. So several approaches to how people are handled. For instance, I think one of the ways in which the Willem Dafoe character of Norman Osborn coming back is handled, when Aunt May has sort of an alternate way, like this guy needs help. You need to, he's lost. Yeah. You need to sort of usher him. You need to not deal with him, because that's sort of the almost the way that they were going to deal with him, is just to deal with him, and that sort of has a negative connotation. She's looking more almost like a social worker, like this former supervillain. You need to help him find his way, and I think that's offering up that option. There's different ways of looking at this, and I think that was a pretty interesting. Of course, it led to her death, but she's almost. It's almost. Do we want to get into religion here? But it's almost like a Catholic. I want to say it's almost like you're doing good for the lost, or the cold, or the people that have been thrown aside, and she's putting herself out there almost like a sort of a, not a hero, I would say, but she's being selfless and thoughtful about it. Mm-hmm. And even though the situation is possibly dangerous, and Norman Osborn's obviously a live wire, so I think that was sort of one of the more poignant ways. She's showing Peter that there's a different way to approach people, not just to dominate them or throw them into jail, but to sort of try to shepherd them along.
Yeah.
And it was almost on a religious kind of service community, like a service basis.
Yeah. No, I think that's perfectly legitimate to talk about in the context, especially the context of this film, Jim. You've got in her, it is and we saw a hint of it in the Black Panther, but only a hint of this idea of service and what can we do for others. But up to this point, every villain who has been, who we've been given a backstory where you kind of go, oh, I sort of see where he's coming from. He's wrong to be doing this, but I'm not shocked that he is. And I'm thinking of Killmonger, or Killmonger's one, the and I can't remember the character's name, but I remember the character in Civil War, the Krakosian, or not Krakosia, that's from the airport. But anyway, the town that gets lifted up in Segovia. Yes.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah.
Segovia of the Segovia Accords. Anyway, Killmonger gets killed. That other dude, he gets locked up in a box, and taunted by his captor, whereas this is and especially with all of these villains, let's put some air quotes on it. These villains not one of them was like, I'm going to conquer the world. I am going to fix, they were all, victims of circumstance. They, even the Jamie Foxx character is just some poor schmuck who, fell in a vat of acid or, got electric zapped or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, and to acknowledge their underlying humanity, and that is what Peter Parker should be obligated to remember and to serve and to save, just chef's kiss stuff. And in a way, a rejection of what the MCU has otherwise been, always a Manichaean good versus evil sort of conversation. This is taking it a whole other level. And again, with Aunt May, from the get-go, he's lost, referring to Willem Dafoe's Osborne guy. The Peter having to earn these quote-unquote villains' trust, which I thought was like super cool. Just this idea that it's like, he can't just, I'm the good guy. Why? Of course you must trust me. And I just thought that gives such a level of realism and nuance. But the other thing, and for those of you who don't know, I recently put on, I think it was on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook, and Instagram, all of the social medias. I did a 1-minute hot take of Peter Parker is the MCU's Peter Parker is a child soldier. And I am solid on that. It's a hot take, but it's not a hot take. One of the things that has bothered me about the way Peter Parker's been handled in these movies in the MCU is, and he's super enthusiastic at the beginning. Who wouldn't? Billionaire's major domo rolls up in a limousine, says, come on, we're going on an adventure. Don't tell anyone. And you fly to Europe and you get to stay in a nice hotel, and it's all that tech BS, and it's Tony Stark, the Elon Musk of the MCU. You know what? And he's enamored of it. And so, but right from the beginning, you Captain Americans, what are you doing here, kid? And he's like, Mr. Stark said you're a bad guy, which is every other child soldier. Picked up, scooped up, whether enthusiastic or unenthusiastic, every other child soldier has been, guess what? You're on the good side, they're the bad guy, fight. And at the beginning of, which is why I'm familiar with Homecoming, because I watched it again specifically to kind of see how they handled that and figure out his age. And I'm giving him 16 at that time because he's obviously at the beginning of his junior year. The events of Civil War that he was involved in were a couple months before. So the summer before his junior year, at best, he's 16. If he didn't skip a grade, which is certainly possible, he's not a dummy. So the 16-year-old, there's Tony driving him home and saying, you best not tell Aunt May. Even like when I joined the militia, when I was a kid, they had, like, I mean, it's the Canadian Armed Forces insisted my dad signed a piece of paper, which is not what I would call informed consent, but is better than don't tell your mother, don't tell your guardian, you know. And ever since, it has been shameless manipulating of this young boy, at which after a while he's like, yeah, I just want to be a kid. And in Far From Home, he is shamelessly, you know, guilt tripped. You got to step up. It's like, what is the 16-year-old? Okay, give him the 17 probably there. Why does the 17-year-old have to step up? Isn't that the grown-ups around him's job? You know, you don't, you know, it's like, well, it's as bad as letting the recruiter in the high school, and then the recruiter then just gets to berate the students about how they're all cowards if they don't sign up. And so that's always really bothered me. And then you get to this movie, and it even begins again, and you'd mentioned it, but I think it was purposeful, where we thought maybe it was just laziness, but it was purposeful. None of the adults around him within the Avengers have ever given two shits about him as an individual and his needs. Tony drops, hey, I know people at MIT. Did he in his will fucking do anything for this kid? Any kind of, you know, I'd really like him taken care of at my alma mater. We'll make sure there's a something, right? Happy? Could he do? Fuck, he's obviously got dough. Nope, he's too busy stalking his mom, or well, his mother figure. And there's Doctor Strange. Sure, I'll do the spell. Oh, you should have thought of this. No, you're the fucking adult. You think of it. You fucking go, all right, why do you want to do this? Isn't there another? That's what an adult does. Slows a young man down and goes, okay, let's think about this. What do you really need? Do you know that would happen? Oh, and maybe he still does the spell, but at least a conversation, like you said. And so, but I think now it was all done on purpose, because all of a sudden we get a way that isn't the Avengers way. I think it had huge meaning that at the end of the big boss fight at the Statue of Liberty, what is the thing that falls? Not the Statue of Liberty, but the Avengers shield. That is what falls there. I'm even getting a little choked up. It was so good, Jim. But this idea, because it's always with the Spider-Man, it's you can't have this if you're going to do this. Well, but he's being given other ways. First of all, you've got the Tobey Maguire and MJ line where it's complicated, but we're working it out. Even Andrew Garfield, you're like, well, there are consequences, but it can be, he even recognizes, I was pretty angry for a lot of years. You get an idea that he has hope for living a normal life. Because otherwise it's always been, you can't have a normal life. And it's like, Jesus, cut the kid some slack. Yeah. And that everyone, just the whole Avengers, just drop him like a hot potato when they no longer need him. And he's got to figure this out. And he goes to one of them who's like, all right, I'll do this dangerous and, crazy risky spell, and then put it on the kid, that it was the kid's fault. Like, that is just, you know what? The Avengers are terrible guardians.
Yeah.
And I think that it's all on purpose. It's why there is some hope at the end, even though his closest friends have no longer have a memory of him. He has an opportunity to rebuild that. And he gets into that crappy apartment, and he's got a bit of a smile, because what does he have? The one thing that from the moment Tony Stark picked him up, or had not even picked him up, had his guy pick him up, from that moment on, he has not had control of his life. And all of a sudden now he does. You know what? He's back in charge of his life. What may come, he's had to make some crappy choices, because like the adults around him, except Aunt May, and at the end, kind of going, okay, there's a moral. Yeah, no, again, it has so much more going on than your standard MCU film, and so much more while building and honoring the thematic beats of previous and the comics of this character. It's got so much more going on. I'm stupidly impressed with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
No, good points. Yeah,
there's, and I even got to put in, because yes, I looked it up according to the UN Rights of the Child, and there is, what was it called again? Bear with me, Mr. Chaboyko.
You know, it did bug me in the Avengers movie that they sort of hired him to, you know, I guess it was Civil War, that they, you know, we need him for this big fight. And kid, if you blow up any airplanes, it's a felony, and you're on the you're on the hook for it. You know, just like this is
again. These are the alleged adults.
Yeah. You know, you have to think too. Is he okay? There's sort of there seems to be a little bit of a vacuum in leadership. So, Captain America's, you know, gone into the past or Back to the Future or whatever. Tony Stark's dead. Who exactly is like the lead person now?
Well, there's the new Captain America. You know what? But leadership vacuum or no? Although I suppose the closest to a secondary father figure would be Happy.
Yeah.
And he's right
but
there.
I'm thinking like, who's going to be the if it's needed, who's going to be the next Tony Stark / Captain America? Like, is it going to be Peter? Is sort of what I'm leading up to. Like,
I think this gets him out of that.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to now, Jim.
Yeah, see ya.
Yeah, he gets to. Yeah, exactly. He gets to say, "See ya, wouldn't want to be ya."
Yeah. I mean, at one point a few years ago, I said to my son, you know, there's going to be a final Marvel movie at some point. I mean, just the laws of everything. I just, you know, and you have to wonder, like, how far down the line are we talking here? You know, when you get it's a new hero, he's called Ice Capades. You know, you sort of see the jumping the shark.
Well, it's like the Western. The Western did die, and although every now and then we have these resurgences, and Deadline, a couple of writers of Deadline did a piece of, it's been stronger than ever, because, you know, we've had a few Western films come out. I'm like, ooh, that's a reach. But it'll eventually die. The thing is, though, Jim, there'll be a last one in how is it? I'm thinking of Flissfetter when he was on our show, Matt from the UW. You know, there can never be an end, because you never know, because it's too easy to just make another one, rewrite, retcon it, but I think it'll die in a whimpery sort of, they lost too much money, and they're like, we don't make those anymore. You know, the climate is not ripe. DMG. Oh yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh yeah. DMG's got a few comments here. And I wanted to kind of, first of all, like I live in a world where I think it's like, oh, finally Sony will do its thing. But you know what? Apparently, NME reports that Amy Pascal has announced that Marvel will produce 3 more Spider-Man movies. So, you know, although who knows? Maybe that's just it. They'll do Spider-Man movies. They'll be Marvel movies, but they'll be all standalones, kind of like, you know, the Ant-Man has his adventures and then some Avenger collabs. I'm going to refer to they're no longer crossovers or anything. They're all collabs.
Yeah.
But where I like this. DMG figures he was 15 in Civil War. He thinks there was a direct reference to his age in there. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
Thanks, DMG. And then he does, though, he says, love Nick Fury's line in there, bitch, you've been to space as the guilt trip. But this is the problem,
Snakes
right?
on a rocket.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, there's those moments and always, and it, you know, you can give the Tony Stark character, I guess, an iota of credit, only an iota, an iota, in that he never really follows through. He never really commits, but he is somewhat guilty that, oh my God, this kid may die and I am somehow involved in this. You mean the tech bro billionaire who picked him up and shoved him in it? I lost the kid. Boy, it's like, you certainly didn't do anything for him afterwards. It was like, back into your crappy apartment and we'll call you when we need you.
What's the Bart Simpson line is, I can't help but feel partially responsible. You know?
No, I was more thinking it's like the Krusty the Clown moment when he's like, what have you done for me lately? I brought you that Danish and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think you make a really good point is that, Tony's got disposable income out the wazoo. And didn't leave the kid anything. Like, and this is a smart kid. Give him some seed money just to live or something.
He does just a scholarship and hey, didn't I just build you another building? I need this
How
kid
about a
in
letter?
There.
Yeah.
Just
a letter reference. I'll do it after we kill Thanos.
And even happy.
No,
it's like, if you weren't so busy crying about his aunt, you might observe that the boy needs, a little help. Nope. No, he's too busy. Oh, I can't believe she was the love of my life. It's like, buddy, you had a thing for a while. Let it go.
Well, Let it go. It is Marissa Tomei. I mean, that's
then you go, wow, for a while.
Yeah.
She was my girlfriend. And then you move on. Maybe you arrogantly up your standards. You got to go, oh, well, if she was willing. But yeah, I do that one really kind of just, and which is why I love this movie. There, I've said it. I love this movie, and although I still say it's not a class conscious movie, well, it'd be interesting if they keep the same writing team, like the same general tone, maybe the next one will, probably not. But at least it'll have some acknowledgement of, hey, there's the Spider-Man who actually has to get a job, and pay rent in a crappy apartment. And anyway, is it? I think it's that time we start talking about what the next movie is.
Oh my God!
But before we do that, I do think it'd be appropriate to, let's first of all, let's shamelessly ask for a like. I'll put the chat back up. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already. And last but certainly not least, ringy-ding that bell.
Oh, sorry. That's my cue. I had a long work day.
How do you miss that? I also want to, once again, thank you, DMG, very much for joining us on the show and then hanging out in the chat. And I'm enjoying your comments. What was another one he got? Now this is more classic DMG. Actually, I think Thomas Hayden Church and Rice Iphens phoned it in. Literally, they're only CGI, so get it?
Yeah.
All right.
That's a good point, though.
But there's a part of me now. Do you get it? All right. So let's, Jim, why don't you, what are we watching next week?
So we have the very, it seems to be controversial, Don't Look Up, with Jennifer Lawrence and Leo DiCaprio. That's we're going to be looking at, in addition to some little side adventure for Dragon Movie Guy.
Yeah. We will also be welcoming back our occasional guest co-host, Ms. Catherine Johansson from, of course, our nation's capital, Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be a great show, folks. 9:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Here, UTC -6. Be here on the YouTubes. Although we might have to start saying 9:45, because you know what? We'll keep you apprised, folks. It will be next Sunday in the evening.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Okay, Jim. Let's get back to the movie at hand, though.
You bet.
Director, Mr. Watts, whose filmography I am completely unfamiliar with. But I'm going to look it up right now. Right now. I feel like one of those right there. What gag was that from, Jim? Oh my goodness.
I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank myself.
All right. Anyway, Mr. Watts is known for he did Homecoming. Oh, this has been his bit. He did Spider-Man Homecoming. He's been the Spider-Man director. Kevin Bacon, Cop Car in 2018. Oh, he did the Onion News Network.
No.
Man. Wow. He was additional crew, Jim, on Sexy Beast, which still is a movie that frightens me in a way.
A few years ago too, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he's directed all the MCU Spider-Mans. He a number of shorts. Music video shorts. Swedish House Mafia, Save the World. And the TV series, number of episodes of the Onion News Network, Onion Sports Dome. Done a lot of music videos like for Death Cab for Cutie, Fat Boy Slim, etc. Wow. I mean, but talk about a command of character. Something DMG said in the chat referred to how the MCU will put character. Character is always important. And yes, I agree with that as well. All right. What's your assessment? Is this a pass or a fail?
Oh, pass. Pass, absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of things going on. I mean, so many moving pieces and, everything else to deal with. Yeah, absolutely. And it moved well. It was entertaining, movie that moved nicely. And, and I think it was kind of, wasn't it over 2 hours? Or am I thinking of the last
2.5?
Oh, was it a, yeah. I mean, it moved pretty quickly from what I recall. So, yeah, good job, Mr. Jon Watts. Some of these guys get more sort of profile than others. Like we all hear about the ones that Taika Waititi's doing. And then sometimes they don't really, it doesn't come out who's directing it. But
who knows? Maybe, you know what? Some folks, they're just, I go to work, I make the movie, then I go home.
Part of the team, yeah.
and
how about you?
Then the publicist meets that guy, goes, yeah, you really do just do that. We've got dynamic actors we can put in front of a camera and talk about this.
Yeah.
We'll skip you. Not him. All right. Myself.
And what did you think?
How could you not give him a pass? I cannot praise the storytelling, the thematic strengths of this film, and not, say the director has so much to do with that. Yeah, I really love this movie. Oh, excuse me. My bad. Yeah,
Oh, no.
it's totally a pass. All right, so that leaves us with Mr. Chaboyko. Final thoughts. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up tonight?
I was just taking a look at the inevitable the lists this morning. And the Globe and Mail had a big list on the weekend of the movies that are coming out this year. And they said, they did one for each of the arts, books and plays and movies and stuff. And they reminded us that the second animated Spider-Man movie is going to come out in 2022. All things being equal, all the planets aligning. So that's something. It's sort of, I mean, they got us hooked.
You know what?
You go to the next one, and the next one.
How did you know what? If I'm to be hooked by great filmmaking with characters I care about, in a well-told story with real philosophical, real thematic stakes and emotional stakes, and count me in. Like you think about even this movie, and yes, there is this. Time can be torn apart, and but in the end, this movie is not. We must do this to save the world. The stakes are. I'm going to say lower than that, and I don't. They're lower. They're way more personal. They're all about character and moral stakes. I think. This movie is way different, and if that's what they keep throwing at us, Jim, okay, color me hooked. It's like,
and I didn't mean it in a cynical way.
I guess so.
Like, guess I got to see the next one.
I'm ready to go, officer.
Yeah, exactly. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, due to be released October 7th of this year. So.
The trailer was recently released. Yes. Google it up, folks. It looks interesting, and I'm looking forward to checking that one out too. The first one was amazing, again, what a great sign when you're like, "Ooh, I want to spend some more time with those characters."
Yeah.
Whereas some where it's like,
it
Bond. I'm like, why do I have to spend more time with this guy? I don't care.
Yeah.
DMG.
Even,
I'm listening.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Say even.
Oh, I was just going to say, for people that may not know Winnipeg in the 1980s, 1970s, 1980s, every day at lunch, you'd get home from school. You'd turn on CKND, and they would have the old animated Spider-Man tune with Peter Parker / Spider-Man being the voice of Paul Soles, the Canadian actor who recently passed away in the last couple of years. But it's
casting his webs even out in country fields.
Yes, yeah.
Where are they going?
Exactly. Yeah, I just
how high are these forest trees?
Can you web clouds? I don't understand. But
isn't that chair that was in that spaceship? Why is it just sitting on a city street?
But if you think back, how it's changed in the past, whatever depressing number of years that has passed. There's some real. For the kids today, they have some. I should say I have a great affection for the old cartoon as well. So it's just neat to see how it's developed over the years.
DMG's wondering how the heck you could eat lunch at home in high school.
You just would walk. Well,
junior high.
Well, junior high.
Junior high. We're Minnetonka. We were stupid close to home. Going home
5 minutes or something.
Yeah. I might have there's a couple folks who go back to our place to smoke cigarettes.
Dementia 5. If I just close my mind and my eyes to it, as he's
well,
falling.
and again, and then he falls into that spaceship chair at a bus stop. DMG does say figures Don't Look Up was great, and is giving a line reference, stop and assess, which we'll probably talk a bit more about next week. All right, Jim. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think we gushed over Dune or at least I don't think I gushed over Dune like I've gushed over this movie. For I know it's technically, well, I guess, you could say it's the last, we would have done this in December if we didn't go on a little Christmas break. So I kind of look at this as the last movie of 2021, even though it's the first show of 2022. But yeah, I'm just like, what a way to end one year and start another. Jim?
Uh-oh.
Oh, no. Well, at least I can hear you. Mr. Chaboyko. Jim?
Uh-oh. Yeah, sorry, I lost contact there for a second. It said chat disconnected, but I'm back.
Oh, okay.
So just repeat the last 2 minutes.
Oh, well, I'm just talking about gushing.
Oh, yes. Yeah. No, I mean, it's nice that, in a way, I'm sort of jealous of the kids these days, the teenagers and stuff, because they have so much to latch onto. Any kind of, back in our day, it was like, an early attempt at Lord of the Rings. There was even a filmed live action Spider-Man movie. There was the David Lynch Dune, which was what it was. So we were really, we had some great, we had Star Wars.
Like
we had Star Wars.
We have Zip. We have got squat to complain about. It was such a hardship to see Star Wars in the theater.
Yeah. No, but I mean, things of of similar quality, there's tons of it now. So it's kind of neat to see. And as you're just sort of getting to know these characters and getting into comics and getting into the movies and things like that, it just probably fires you up to no end, and it's sort of cool to be a comic book geek these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with the conventions and how they've reached such a level of mainstream acceptance. Yeah, it is. I'm sure there's some older comic. Remember KeyCon here in Winnipeg? Yeah. I'm sure there's some old KeyConners that are going, boy, it was rough back in those days, but now I'm a god.
Yeah.
All right.
So things have changed a lot, but it's cool.
Yeah. All right. I think let's first of all want to give a shout out to first of all the MJ in our chat who I hasn't said a thing after what all didn't we like about No Way Home. Who knows? Maybe MJ's been listening the whole time and going, oh, they really don't not like anything. And of course, DMG and any of you lurkers out there who didn't feel inclined to join the chat or still checking us out or checking us out on a rerun. Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate it. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to subscribe, ring the bell. We will be back next week at 9:30 or perhaps 9:45. We will keep you apprised though. And Kroll, 1985. All right, guys.
My first Kroll reference of the new year.
Your first Kroll reference. All righty. Jim, I'll see you in the green room. For everybody else, thank you all